Hi, my name is Jaya, and I'm the Chief Information Security Officer at Avast. I'm joined today by Susie Hargreaves.
Hello, Jaya. It's really nice to be here. I'm delighted to do this as we're working closely with Avast, who are one of our most important members. So it's an absolute pleasure to be here today and to talk to you about our work.
Thank you so much, Susie. Maybe you could start by telling us a little bit about what it is you do.
Yeah, so the IWF, the Internet Watch Foundation, we're the UK hotline for reporting and removing online child sexual abuse. And although we're based in the UK, we're actually working globally. So, as well as having a hotline for the public to report suspected child sexual abuse into the UK, we've also got 43 portals around the world. So, other countries can report into us. And we also work with the tech industry to provide a range of technical services and tools to help them disrupt and prevent the distribution of online child sexual abuse.
And, I have to say, I'm so proud that we at Avast joined the IWF in September 2020 because our mission is to reduce online harm and it's our vision to ultimately stop it altogether. So we find this so good that this is a value that's very strongly shared by the IWF. And child sexual exploitation and child abuse pornography, it's just gotten worse and more prevalent as the internet has evolved. And as an IWF partner, we really want to use our technical knowledge and support and resources to crack down on the creation, but also the sharing of child abuse imagery and make sure that there's no re-victimization, and even rescue some of the children that we can track down and determine they've been affected. And we're really pleased that we can work directly with IWF to filter out web pages that are identified of hosting any of this abusive child imagery.
Well, thank you for saying that. And I have to say, we were delighted when you did come on board because you're such an important global company. And, this whole fight can only be successful if we all work together. So we have 155 tech companies in our membership. We also work very closely with law enforcement and with governments around the world. And it's got to be a kind of collaborative partnership approach to work together to fight the problem. But having Avast take some of our technical tools and deploy them across, your massive market is a really, really important step to making sure that happens. And, one of the things we would say is that technical tools, are really vitally important in this fight, but we also need to have the right legislation, the right law enforcement action, and of course we need to do a lot of work on people's behavior to prevent this happening, because as you rightly say, this is a problem, unfortunately, that's just not going away. It's getting bigger and bigger, and every single image is a real child who has really been sexually abused.
Hey, and how do you see this evolving? I mean, how has it been going when you guys started to what's happening now? Like, yeah, how has it evolved in terms of content hosted, shared?
Well, it moves all the time, and it constantly evolves because we have new technology coming online. We have new platforms, and when we started in 1996, the internet was in sort of its fledgling days. So we were set up by 7 companies. There's only one of our original members still in existence, and that's BT. And at the time, they were kind of like, well, we just provide the means for people to communicate and share information, but we're nothing to do with the content. And in fact, that whole attitude has changed over the years. So now, companies like Avast, you have a kind of sense of social responsibility. So you are aware that the internet exists for good, but actually you need to work with organizations like ourselves and others to make sure that people don't abuse what are really good platforms and good services. So basically, when we started in 1996, we didn't remove much content. But the content that was around then, we removed 18% of all content was hosted in the UK, and since 2004, it's been less than 1%, and last year was less than 0.5%. And when you think about the numbers that have grown, so I mean, I can give you a very specific example that when I started at the IWF, which was 9 years ago, we removed
Hmm.
9,000 web pages of child sexual abuse. And last year we removed 132,000.
Oh my God.
pages, and each page could have one or 100 or even thousands of images. That's millions of images. And we have to stay one step ahead of the criminals and one step of the people who are using the technology to fight this problem. But we can't give up. We've got to keep fighting.
Susie, to be honest, I have a whole set of questions that I want to ask you, but when you actually say those numbers, I just get chills because I can, even with duplication of the same image across multiple sites, just the sheer volume of content and the actual children that it represents is terrifying to me.
Yeah, I
Um,
think that's a really good point, because I think people think, well, we know that some people justify looking at child sexual abuse because they think it's a victimless crime. Well, I'm not doing any harm, I'm not abusing the child. But, let me tell you about Tara, who's a woman that I met in the States a couple of years ago. She's now in her 20s, but she was rescued when she was 12. She was sexually abused by her father and his friends for years and years and years. And when she was rescued, we knew that one of her images had been shared 70,000 times. And also, one of the awful things that she told me was that she was once in a shopping mall, and a middle-aged man, came up and said he recognized her from her pictures. So she felt this feeling of
ugh,
not only feeling, well, my images are out there, who's seen me, but actually she felt physically unsafe all the time. And I think that's what we need to try and get across, is that the danger of, when we're talking about millions of images, is that we forget that these are all individual children. So we need to actually really remember that this is a really horrific crime, and these children, their childhood is robbed from them. So we need to do everything we can to generate a zero tolerance approach to this, and do everything
fully
we can
agree.
to fight the problem.
Yeah, yeah. I have to tell you that I live in the Netherlands, and what's always really disturbing when I see these numbers of going from 18% to 1%, I have to think about the amount of crap that's hosted in the Netherlands from bulletproof hosters that you can't take down, and that I believe that it's how what do you, I know this, I'm putting you on the spot now,
Oh,
but
no,
do you
you're
know what?
not.
Okay,
Unfortunately, I just told you that not less than 0.5% was hosted in the
yeah,
Netherlands. Um,
of
so
UK,
Yeah, sorry, I was hosting the UK. Sorry, thank you, Jaya.
yeah,
So last year, well, we had less than 0.5%. The Netherlands had 71% of all
yeah,
content. So over 92,000 web pages were hosted in the Netherlands. And I would love to tell you that it's gone down, but actually this year it's exceeded it already, and we've got 2 months to go. And the situation in the Netherlands is, on the one hand, I kind of feel quite sort of I know that the people we're working with, the hotline in the Netherlands, law enforcement, government, have now stepped up to the fact they have this really big problem, and
hmm,
they are trying to look at how they resolve it in terms of legislation, but it's also not happening fast enough. So
I
you're
agree.
right, there are a
Yeah.
couple of very, very bad players who are allowed to just continue in the Netherlands. And some people say to me, well, it has been said to me, well, if we clean it up from the Netherlands, all we do is push it to another country. And I
I disagree.
just do not
Mm,
accept that, because
no,
if every
no,
country stepped up, there'd be nowhere for it
yeah,
to go. So, but I totally agree with
agreed.
you. Major problem in the Netherlands.
And if we think about this, about that you are now expanding your operations outside of the UK, so is there anything that you would like to happen? I mean, the Netherlands, I actually know some very good people in law enforcement. Europol is headquartered there. They just
Mm.
released the IOPTA that said just since COVID-19, there's been a 50% increase in online child exploitation, which I found super alarming. I mean, how do you want to expand operations beyond the UK and the Netherlands? How are you going to get to that global approach?
Well, Jay, that is a great question. So you're right. In the Netherlands, you've got Europol, you've got the Dutch hotline, you've got InHope, which is the Association of Internet Hotlines. So there's all sorts of big players that need to kind of work together and step up. But this is a global problem, and we can only solve it. Not no one organisation can solve it. Like Avast can't sort it on their own. We can't sort it on our own. We've all got to work together, and that means industry working, taking technical services and doing what they can to sort of fight it at that level. It means us working internationally with law enforcement, with governments. It means us having proper education and awareness. And it means us helping countries that maybe don't have the resources. So our reporting portals are predominantly in African countries, and they are in the least developed countries in the world, because these are countries where you they're not going to have the money to set up a hotline. So what we've done is put in a mechanism and work with partners on the ground to say, you do have an issue with child sexual abuse. Unfortunately, every country does. And especially where you have countries that went straight to 4 and 5G, suddenly they were having access to videos and all sorts of sort of nasty content. So we have to work in partnership. So what do we want to see? Well, I think there are some wonderful initiatives like the We Protect Global Alliance, which is an international initiative to bring us all together. And we work with many international partners. So we work with other hotlines. We work with NECMEC, the National Centre for Exploited and Missing Children in the States. We work with fantastic NGOs like Thorn, who are in the States, the Canadian Centre. We work across the board with everyone, and we have to not be precious about our resources, but share them where we can and help each other.
That's wonderful. Actually, I think we need more global cooperation, not less. And I can't even imagine the scale of an operation where you have, images in one country and then an actual victim in the other, and the amount of global law enforcement cooperation that's required for that. That's so. In terms of, we just talked about COVID-19 having a sort of negative impact on child exploitation. What kind of trends do you see in terms of the type of content that's created and then shared, and how is like tech actually played a role?
So when we went into lockdown, and in the UK we had a very strict lockdown in the beginning, the IWF was able to stay open, so our hotline has been operating throughout lockdown. And
Mhm.
we've seen a big increase in public reports. So just in September alone, we had a record number of public reports. We had over 15,000, which is a 45% increase on September in 2019. And what's been clear to us is that throughout lockdown, you've had and throughout COVID, you'd had children, particularly more children online all day, and more perpetrators online all day. And whilst that's the internet has also been a hugely important resource during this time, because it provided entertainment, education resource. It's also meant that we've seen a steep increase in the amount of content that's been shared. So we've got a couple of statistics which are pretty shocking, which is that during a period of 1 month during lockdown, 3 of our member companies who take our URL, our blocking list, which you also take,
Yeah.
they recorded between the 3 of them 8.8 million attempts to access our list just in the UK alone. And then another really bad statistic, which we're very, very worried about, is that over the last few years, we've seen a big increase in self-generated content. So this is content where a child is in their bedroom or domestic setting, and they are being almost certainly tricked, coerced into performing sexual acts on a video, which is then recorded and harvested onto a child sexual abuse website. And this year to date, 44% of all the content we've removed has been self-generated. And of
Oh
that,
my god.
90% is girls aged 11 to 13. So we have got this, now have got what we consider to be an absolutely critical issue that needs to be addressed across the board of protecting, particularly that age group are so
Yeah.
vulnerable. I mean, they have, they're not emotionally or physically mature enough
Mature.
to know what's happening,
No.
and they're so vulnerable. So, we have to start getting some messages out. And the truth is that the children we see in these settings,
Hmm.
their parents probably think they're super safe because they're in the
Of
house,
course, they're
they're in
upstairs in
the
their bedroom,
bedroom.
and yeah,
And
yeah.
so, I think, and we see the kids getting younger and younger. And actually, I'm sure, one of the videos, which is about an hour long, of an 11-year-old girl that we aged at 11, it's about an hour long, and she's engaged in category A activity, which is the worst level for us. Clearly reading instructions and then doing things. About 3/4 of the way through this video, you actually hear someone shouting, "Dinner's ready." So, so this is, kids who, I mean, I feel for the parents as well and the carers, because they are probably almost certainly
No.
totally unaware of what's happening. So we
No,
need to get
you know, I actually get this is I have my children myself, so how do parents actually have a chance? I mean, because my daughter as well wants to be on TikTok and see the videos and do, and the only thing we've managed to do is figure out how to restrict
Mhm.
who follows her on social media, but beyond that, we don't really do what can parents do?
Well, how old are your kids, Jaya?
They're well, two boys, 14, 12, and a daughter who's 8.
Right. Okay. So I mean, one of the things we would always say anyway is that there needs to be age appropriate supervision. So it's patently ridiculous to say to a 16-year-old, I'm going to sit here and watch what you're doing, and so there's a lot of stuff around trust and talking to your kids, and I'm sure you are a person who talks to your kids, and I think that's the first thing, is to have the courage to talk to your children in quite an open and honest way, to not blame them for anything ever, because children at that age are not, they are being, the people, particularly the young girls we see, they are not cleverer than the people who are tricking and coercing them, so they need to be protected and not blamed, and uh, and there needs to be no victim blaming here. But the other thing is, we need to get, we're about to do some big work in terms of some awareness raising for the children in a way that doesn't scare them, because it's a scary time anyway,
It is scary.
but
Yeah.
also for the parents as well and
Mhm.
carers. So what I would say is, if you've got an 8-year old in their bedroom on, and they've got an internet enabled device and a camera, then actually you just need to know what they're doing, basically, in the same way as you wouldn't let an 8-year old, would you? I mean, this whole sort of thing about, you wouldn't let, there's some things you wouldn't let 8-year olds do. So I think it's about just sort of taking responsibility for knowing what they're doing and what they're up to, and clearly being sensible about it, because the internet's a great thing. I mean, we see the worst stuff ever on the internet, and yet I still think it's one of the most fantastic, wonderful, enabling tools. So it's just trying to get that balance right. But we do need some education in this respect. It's because it's shocking.
and it's I have the deepest respect actually for that difficult work, for going through this. And when we have security teams, we always had teams that do forensics, and when I was working in consulting, we said we cannot do forensics for any type of pedophiliac material because we simply don't have the resources to support the team afterwards. So any types of criminal investigations that require this type of work, it's just not something that we felt we were. How do you do this work? How do you actually, I mean, again, the deepest respect, but emotionally, psychologically, the support you and your team must have, how do you ensure that those people are supported?
Well, it's not a job that everyone can or wants to do. So we have about half our staff are in the hotlines or analysts. So we go through a very sort of detailed recruitment process. So they have like a normal interview, but they also have what's called a personal interview with a counsellor, and we actually get, check out their sort of personal attitudes to things, and their support mechanisms and how resilient they are. Then prior to them actually coming to work for us, they do an image viewing session so that they understand what they'll be seeing. And there are some people who pull out at that stage. When they do come and work with us, we have a very controlled working environment. You can't work alone. It's under, we monitor everyone. There's a 6-month training. And all staff who see images have mandatory monthly counselling. We all have an annual psychological assessment. And then we have lots of, when we weren't in lockdown, we would have regular away days for all the staff. It's also a very nice working arrangement. They're able to take breaks whenever they want. And we're really careful about looking after them, because they're our greatest asset, but also, people sort of say to me, well, how on earth can you stand to look at this stuff? And the truth is that context is everything. So if you're trained to look at it, and you know what you're looking at, and you know why you're looking at it, then also I think there's very few jobs where people can go home every single day and say I made a difference. And, so every single day our analysts remove child sexual abuse content from the internet. And every so often, and it's not often enough, unfortunately, we aid the rescue of a child. So we actually had a situation last week where one of our analysts was able to find a child and identify a child who was then safeguarded, and the boost that gives the whole team, because that actually, that means that child, hopefully you've made a difference and really helped change that child's life. So, and I mean, sadly, that doesn't happen very often. But that's why we do it. We're motivated to do it because it's doing some good. But you're right. Not everybody can do it. It's at dinner parties is a bit of a conversation stopper. Got to be
I
honest.
can imagine. I can imagine. And I don't know. I suppose everyone has a different reaction, but my first reaction to pretty much all of this is initially is a sort of anger and a determination to fix it and to try to figure out why can't we get more security companies, to help you, and not just security companies. Susie, if you, how do people help you? How can not only security companies help you, but if you could say, I would, if we want to fix the problem, I need this, this, and this, what would those things be?
Well, it's great question. Obviously, we want a zero tolerance approach to this. So first of all, if you this isn't a victimless crime. So if you are looking at child sexual abuse or you accidentally stumble on it, you should report it. You do not need me to tell you if you see a 10-year-old child being sexually abused, that that's wrong. I'm sorry, there is nobody who needs me to tell you that. So first of all, address your behavior if you are one of those people. But secondly, we just need, we do work with tech companies like yourselves. Unfortunately, we mentioned already the bad players are the ones who don't step up and engage. We use technical tools to fight the problem. And then we're also incredibly lucky that we do benefit from the engineering support of major companies. So we've had engineers in residence from Google, from Microsoft. We work very closely with some of the big tech companies. And one of the things I think, there is this kind of mantra that, tech companies don't do anything. They're all irresponsible. They don't do anything. And I'm not defending the fact that tech companies could do more. Obviously, they could do more. We all could. But actually, there is a lot of amazing work that happens that isn't acknowledged. And it is one of those subjects where competitors will get into the room and work together to come up with a solution, because they are people and they do not want to be associated with this heinous content. So actually, I've never had a situation, I forget that they're competitors. Do you know what I mean? Because they will actually be talking about, well, we will all fight the problem together. So it's about partnership approach, using technology, but not being precious, sharing what we know, and all combining to fight the problem. And also, it is a war of attrition. We have to, if someone says to me, well, it's a needle in a haystack, why do you bother? And I think, well, you tell that to the child that we took their image down today, because they need to know that we're out there. And actually, as the technology gets better and the use of AI and the use of technical tools get better, yeah, we might win this battle. And if I didn't think we wouldn't keep doing it. So we just have to keep going and fight the fight together.
And I think that we have to figure out how to do this at a much higher rate and better globally. But so, speaking of that globally thing, what is your goal? I mean, how do we get to this place where there is no more exploitation or abuse of children, and that the good vehicle of the internet is used for these nefarious purposes?
Well, our ultimate goal is the elimination of online child sexual abuse, and I'd love to think we'll get there. I need to believe we'll get there, but while until we do get there, we need to use every tool at our disposal to get on that path in the right direction. So the use of technology, and I'm hopeful, particularly with AI and machine learning, that we're getting better and better. So we now have hashing technology where we can take digital fingerprint and then use that digital fingerprint of a known child sexual abuse image to go out and find all the duplicates, and industry can deploy that as well to stop the upload. We have classifiers which use artificial intelligence to actually look at ways in which we can find potential child sexual abuse. So that helps us triage the millions and millions of images. And that's getting better and better every single day as the data that's fed into it gets better. And then we've also got crawlers. So our crawlers, and there are lots of crawlers around the world, Arachnid in Canada, our crawlers are crawling the internet for sites of child sexual abuse, and that helps us bring down loads more content. So the more we can harness the sort of amazing side of technology to fight the problem, the easier it's going to be. So we need to just keep working in the right direction and not give up. We won't give up. We won't give up until we get rid of this.
And Susie, what can people do? Because I was thinking, actually, we talked about it, the telecom market. I mean, honestly, if we use some of those crawlers and hashing tools to detect images, why aren't all telcos globally kind of doing this? So, I mean, all outgoing internet connections are inspected for this material. Is it in violation of something, or is there just purely a lack of support?
I think it varies. So, in some countries there's legislation, there's more pressure on companies in some countries. So, in some countries it just doesn't even hit the radar that this is a really important issue. And to be honest, in certain countries, the internet companies don't think it's their responsibility. So, we have a situation where we've been working in India for a number of years, and there is even a court order, a Supreme Court order instructing the ISPs to take our URL blocking list, and they just ignore it because they don't think it's their job to do it. And I think, that pressure will only come from the government and the public saying, actually, it is. You have a corporate and social responsibility, like Avast do, to actually address this issue. You can't just, say it's got nothing to do with us. And I know they'll get there, frankly, because, at some point they will be forced to, because you can't just say it's got nothing to do with me. So I think it really just depends. Different, like you mentioned, the bulletproof hosters in the Netherlands, they're never going to step up because unless they know that their law enforcement's on their case and they're going to take action, they're not going to step up. They're not going to do the right thing, and that's really sad. So we just need to apply pressure in different ways. And I think the public are not. If they knew more about this, they're never going to go, that's all right with me that this organization hosts child sexual abuse. The majority of the public know this is a really terrible crime and want to do everything they can to fight it.
Yeah. Well, I'm so happy that we are helping you, but I really would like to personally commit to finding more ways to help you and getting more tech partners and other people to help join the fight. So I really thank you for all of the work that you and your team do, and anything that we can do to help. I'd like to commit that we're there for you.
Oh, Jaya, that is so nice to hear. And we were so excited when you came into membership. So, and it's an absolute honor and privilege to be able to talk to you today and to know that there are companies like yours out there and that you've given your personal commitment as well. Couldn't ask for more. So thank you so much.
No, thank you. Thank you.